safe space between us. I am your host Kieran and my co-host Tessa. This is your safe space. There is no judging here. We care. You're not alone. We will support you and help you. This is your channel too. Enjoy.
My name is Carrie Mcfarland. I do live in the States. I actually live in New England. And I am a life coach for moms with teen daughters, and we'll get into the reasons why I decided to do that throughout this podcast. But I have 2 teenage daughters. My husband will be married for 20 years this May.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. And we have a dog and a cat. So
Hey.
it's pretty full here.
Do the dog and cat get on well?
Well, the dog wants to with the cat, but the cat wants nothing to do with the dog. So
I find that all the time. I've got a Labrador, golden retriever, and she's so scared of that.
yeah.
But brilliant. So what we do, Carrie, if you just rewind us from the start, obviously on what made you get into your life coaching stuff, mothers now. So let's start from the beginning. Where did it all start? What troubled you at the time to make you want to do what you're doing now?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a journey. So I'll go all the way back to the beginning. So when I had my daughter, almost 18 years ago now, I was overcome with anxiety. I was just overwhelmed with anxiety.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that that's what was happening. So I didn't hindsight's always 2020. Looking back on what happened, I did not get the support I needed, but I also didn't ask for the support I needed because I didn't know I needed it.
Yeah, of course.
So it kind of snowballed. And the other thing I didn't realize, and I learned this really only in the last few years as I've kind of dug into this life coaching arena, I realized that my anxiety presents as anger.
Okay.
And I had no idea that was a presentation of anxiety, because you always think of anxiety like you're just scared, right? Right. And you're just, avoiding things. And I was doing a little bit of avoiding, but mostly it was just anger. And I would go from just going along in my day and being triggered by something and just fly into a rage. And sometimes I didn't calm down from that for days. I mean, that's an extreme, but that has happened a few times.
Yeah.
It just stayed with me.
Was this during your pregnancy or after you had your first child?
After. I mean, I had anxiety before, again, not realizing it. This is my hindsight 2020 vision, but not like this.
Okay.
Totally different.
So was you quite young or was you mature?
No, I had my daughter when I was 32.
Right, okay.
Sorry, 33. And
I know
I
they say never ask a woman her age, so I'm sorry.
No, it doesn't bother me. I had been just living my life, and it was just me and who I am. And then all of a sudden, bring this little baby into the mix. And it wasn't just, it was a whole mix of things, right? It wasn't just the baby. It was, not knowing what I'm doing, all the hormones that go along with having a baby that I completely downplayed, and people didn't really actually ask me about those things. I basically was unemployed, during maternity leave, and then there was struggles with jobs after that. So there was all those stressors. Then we have the stressors of family, of, they want to insert themselves into things, and you just are like, I just need to be by myself, and I need to do it my way first before all of you start jumping in, and right. So there's like all of that. So all of that together, it sent me into a spiral that I felt deeply for the first year of my daughter's life. I remember on her birthday, her first birthday, sometime in the afternoon, I was like, I feel different. Like, I feel calmer. Like, I could feel myself feeling calmer.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what that was. I don't know if that was sort of like, I don't know, my thoughts about what was happening, or if it was a hormonal shift. I'm not really sure, but I remember feeling just calmer. Now, that didn't mean that my anxiety had gone away. It just meant that it just notched down a couple, a couple ticks. But
why do you think that happened? Did you do anything different leading up to that point?
No.
Or did you eventually get these, like family and stuff all over you wanting to be involved? Did you eventually get your own space before that moment, or?
Well, so that's the funny thing. So again, because my anxiety presented as anger, I kind of like pushed everybody away with that, right? That, yeah. So that wasn't exactly the most healthy way to do it, but I would just kind of explode and just be like, just go. I don't need to see you. Go away. I don't need your help. Just leave me alone, right? It was like that kind of energy. And I would yell at my husband all the time. And it was just, it wasn't a good feeling for me. It wasn't a good feeling for them. But even though I knew I didn't want to continue doing that, I just didn't know what to do. Like in my mind, it was like everything was happening to me. And so I felt out of control with it. Like something would happen and then I would get angry. So I was always seeing it as the thing that was making me angry rather than taking control of my
I totally
emotions.
get that. But when you had your baby, did I don't know what it's like in America, but obviously being your first baby, wasn't there any support or guidance from the hospital of what kind of support networks are out there for you if you need help with this and that? Because obviously it's loving having a newborn, but once you get over the months, there's a lot of new things that you have to learn quickly. Wasn't there any information support for you at the start?
Well, so when I had her, I had a nurse, I think it was about a week after I brought her home. They called to do a wellness check. Yeah. And they asked me, they went down the checklist, do you feel like hurting yourself? Do you feel like hurting the baby? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel anxiety? Right? I didn't know I was feeling anxiety, and I didn't want to hurt myself or hurt the baby. Right. So I was like, no. They're like, okay, see you later. So I was,
and that was it.
That was it.
Wow.
That was really it. I mean, I could have probably, looking back on it, sought out resources. But again, it's like when you're so overwhelmed and you're right in the middle of the chaos, you're not thinking clearly. I mean, some people have babies and they just are like
natural,
totally fine with it, and they're all chill and they just, go with the flow. I was not like that. Everything that happened in my mind was a crisis that I needed to deal with. So it was very disconcerting.
Yeah, I'll totally get that, because I've got 6 children, and my first one, was when I was 17. Obviously, I didn't give birth; my partner did. But for both of us, it was overwhelming. My missus kind of worked in nurseries and stuff then, but here in the UK, before you give birth and after you give birth, before you even leave the hospital, a nurse does come round, obviously showing you how to change nappies and stuff like that, which was kind of really helpful. So hence why, but I know a lot of people similar to how you felt, that it's quite overwhelming leading up to it, excited, buying stuff and etc. But as soon as the baby comes, it's quite really overwhelming, like, and you feel alone and then you get angry. I totally get how you felt. I totally respect that and totally feel.
Yeah.
So what happened next? So your baby's there on the birthday, you felt different, well, calmer. What was your next move after that?
Well, I mean, I just sort of noticed how I felt, but nothing really changed other than I didn't feel like I was on a level 10 anymore. You know, I did feel a little bit calmer. So, but you know, as you know, with 6 children, right? As babies grow, they become their own little person, right? And then they start pushing back on you and they start doing all the things, right? And so then there's like so then there's like a whole new set of frustrations. And my, you know, again, looking back on it, because hindsight's 2020, my biggest thing, and at the time I thought it was her, like she was doing this and making me angry, right? But that's really not how it goes, but that's how I felt at the time. But, you know, my thing is I felt out of control, and more than that, I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. So everything I did was wrong, and everything I did was making it worse. Like, this is how I was thinking in my head. So then that created like another whole layer of anxiety, which would fuel my anger again, because who likes to feel anxious, right?
Exactly.
So I just replaced that with anger, right? So it was like this whole big cycle that went on for years, you know, because I just always felt like I didn't know what I was doing.
All right. So when this, like, I totally get that, because it's like a vicious circle, keep going round and round and round. I think my partner sees that all the time, but eventually you realised it wasn't you. Well, it wasn't your daughter's fault.
Well, eventually, yes.
Eventually we get there. Eventually, so what kind of support, or did you eventually go and seek help or speak to a friend or a relative to see if you was doing something wrong, to get advice or anything like that?
Yeah. So I'll fast forward way into the future. So now my daughter's a teenager, and we're just going at it all the time, right? So, and I hated it. I hated that feeling. That's not the kind of mom that I wanted to be. And I had like these dual versions of me, you know, like the understanding, loving, you know, mom that wants to connect, and then the like rage monster that would come out when something didn't go my way. Right? So that's kind of how I lived, which obviously affected everybody around me. But what happened is I finally said, I just like reached my breaking point. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I need to do something. Now, let me go back a little bit. When my second daughter was born, about 1.5 years or 2 years after she was born, I had a massive event of my, like, all, it sounds strange because nothing happened. There wasn't like a car accident or a fall or anything like that, but my whole, like, all the muscles in my back just all seized up.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't do any, like, I couldn't move. Like, I couldn't move. And people were like, what happened? I'm like, nothing happened. Like, I don't know. So that went on for like a year. And I'm trying to take care of a preschooler and a toddler. And I literally can't move. Like, I couldn't like bend down. Like, this is as much as I could bend down. I could barely bend down. I couldn't turn my body like a normal person. I had to like move my entire body as one unit to move around, because if I twisted my torso, it would, it would send it off again.
Did you get any treatment or anything for that?
I did. I went to a chiropractor for an entire year. And things did get better finally. And I created this, routine, like the stretching routine for myself that I did, but it wasn't perfect. Right. And even after the year, I think I was probably only like 80%. And then gradually it would get a little better. But I mean, it went on for years.
Wow.
And I had to be really careful. Well, so when my daughter was a teenager and all this stuff was going on, like you can imagine when you're angry and anxious and like all those feelings, like your body just naturally tenses up. Like you just can't help it, right? So I'm living like that for a long time. And then all of a sudden, one day, seemingly out of nowhere, I moved like apparently the wrong way, and like all that stuff came back. Now, not to quite the same level, but it was the same. And I was like, all right, no more. This needs to stop. This is all related. Like this is, my health, my mental health, like this is all related. I need to fix this. I need to like figure out how to make this better. So I kind of took a 360 approach with myself. I went to therapy. I went to physical therapy. I went to Reiki. I changed my diet. I gave up gluten. I gave up caffeine. I gave up dairy. I made sure I was like outside in the sunlight for periods of time. I did everything, all at once. Probably not the best approach either, but I was like, that's it, I'm done.
Done it all at once. Did any of them, what one really stood out for you that really helped?
So the two things that stuck were, I'll say three things. The three things that stuck were changing my diet. I still don't eat gluten. I still don't eat dairy. I do caffeine now, but not a ton. But I do pay attention to what I eat. The Reiki, that lasted until COVID, and then she had to shut down. But the thing that prevailed through all of it was physical therapy. And that really actually helped a lot in terms of the physical. Yeah. Now, the mental piece, what stuck instead of therapy was I found life coaching.
Okay, and this is where you are now, yeah?
And this is what I am now. Beginning. Now I'm a life coach. That was the beginning of it. Okay. Yes.
So at least you found, something triggered you to see, I need to sort myself out. And that was feeling all that stress building up, and then it happened again. And then obviously the physical therapy, the changing your diet and that eventually got you to start life coaching. So you found a negative and made it into a positive. So well done for that. So obviously you started with life coaching. How did it all start? What was the beginning story of that?
Yeah. It's funny because I was actually listening to a weight loss life coach on podcasts, and I had joined her Facebook group. And one of the days that I was in there, there was a parenting life coach. Okay. And so I watched her. She did like a free webinar for the group, right? So I watched her webinar, and then you could sign up with her. And I was like, I need that. I need to do that. So I signed up with her. I think it was, I want to say it was a 12-week program. I think that's what it was. And it changed my whole perspective of how I saw my daughter, how I saw myself, how I interacted, how my thoughts and feelings and actions are like all connected, and and how that all works. It was like seeing for the first time. I mean, I know that sounds kind of dramatic, but I mean that's kind of how it felt, because in our first session, and I'll never forget this because this was what really this was the beginning of me really changing my thinking. Is she, wanted me to tell her my story, and I was, saying like, our relationship is so broken and it's my fault, and I did this, and I yelled at her when she was little, and I yell at her now, and I did it, it's all my fault, and we're just so broken. And I just kept saying the same things over and over again. And she stopped, and she's like, when I was done, she stopped, she said, you're just telling me that as if it's the news. As if it's real, as if it's a fact. And I was like, what are you talking about? It is a fact. We are broken. I did do it. It's all my fault. Like, what are you talking about? So it was like one of those things that you would just like, what? Like I really had to sit with that for like 2 weeks. I was just like, what does she mean it's not my fault? How could it not be my fault? And I would just like keep going through it in my head over and over and over again. And in the meantime, we're still meeting, and I'm telling her all these things, and she's giving me these things to do and to, write down and things like that. And one day it just like hit me, like this is the way it's supposed to be, because this is the way it's going.
Yeah.
I can't change what I did. And if I continue to say that I wrecked her because of my behavior in the past, then that's actually, that's probably affecting her more, because I'm giving her the message that she's broken.
Yeah, I'll totally.
And she's not broken.
I totally get that. Yeah, I hear that.
So it just like hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was like, whoa. So that was really the beginning of, first I had to do all of my work and heal. I mean, not that, I'm constantly still doing
of course
work, right? I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I never will stop doing that. But,
to be fair, I just think
yeah,
everyone in life, like all of us, parents as well, well, mostly in parents, I think we're always learning something about ourselves, about how even me with 6 kids, I'm always learning something different about myself. And if you're not willing to learn at the same time, you're going to beat yourself up for the rest of your life, and then it will affect your child as well. So I totally respect and hear everything you've just said so far, because I can relate a lot already.
Yeah. It is strange. So now the way I see it is, she helped me. Like, she helped me because she forced me, or, this whole situation, it just forced me to look at myself and be like, what are you doing? Like, you are doing this. Like, you need to stop. If you want things to change, then you have to change, not her. Not everybody else. Like, you have to change. It's not perfect, but our relationship is much better.
So how old is your daughter now? It's 19, was it? Or
she'll be 19 in July.
Okay, so at least it's improving. At least you can say it's improved from where it was at the start. And that's what I always say, is we've got to change one for ourselves, and things won't change if we're not willing to do it. And I totally relate to that. So now you've got your life coaching, you joined the life coaching course, and then 12 weeks after, what happened next after realising that?
I actually signed up with her again. I'm like, this is good. I'm going to do this again. So I signed up with her again.
Another 12 weeks?
But I think that one was 6 weeks. I think it was like an extension program.
Okay.
But then after that, so then, I continued to like do my own work and listen to the podcast and stuff. And then I really got it in my head. I'm like, I want to do this for other moms. Like, I want to help other moms, because I can't be the only one who feels this way. Like, I can't be the only one who did these things. I mean, you see it on Instagram all the time, like yelling at your kids. And that's a whole other thing, is there's when you get to the teen years, I don't know how old your kids are, but when you get to the teen years with your kids, there's sort of like this silent, I don't know, understanding that you should know what you're doing by now.
I'll get it.
Right?
I'll get it. I've got a 16-year-old. I've got the 16-year-old son, a 13-year-old son, and the other four. The oldest girl is 10, so I've got a lot to come with that. But she thinks she's 19 already.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, we had that too. So there's this, I feel like, at least for me, and this is how I kind of think of things. Like, if I'm feeling this way, there are other people feeling this way. And when I see that message, it does still bring up a little bit of that shame feeling for me. Like, I should know what I'm doing already. Like, why don't I know this? And then I can quickly get out of it now. Cool. I don't spiral with it. But there is that, like, initial, like, hit of, like, I really should know what I'm doing by now. What is happening? Like, what is wrong with me? And I love social media, but there are good and bad to everything, right? Definitely. And so the good part of it is it connects people, right? Like, we connected on social media, and now I'm doing this, and now this is going to go out to a bunch of people. Like, I love that. That's so incredible that we can do that. But the other piece of it is the comparing, right? And call it comparing and despairing. And, a lot of people do that. And I see the messages out there about peaceful parenting and all the terrible things that happen to your kid when you yell at them and all that. And I'm not saying that those things aren't true and that those things shouldn't be out there. But when you're past the stage of little kids and you've already done all those things that they say don't do, then you're like, what do I do? Because now it's too late. Right? And that's how people feel. And that's why I wanted to work with moms with teen daughters, is because that's, everybody kind of wants to help from their own experience. That's my experience. And I do think that it's important for moms, even when your kids are teens, like, things are happening the way they're happening, and they're just happening. Like, you can't change it. So don't beat yourself up about it. It's sort of like dieting. Like, when you're trying to watch what you eat, but then you eat an Oreo, and then you're just like, oh, forget it then. Never mind. It's like...
That's a good way to put it.
But you can't do that with your kids. So you got to keep at it, right? And so I had a blog post once, or maybe it was just an Instagram post about, why is yelling good for your kids? Just to kind of like flip that thinking of... you're human, you're going to do things that when you look back on them, that you would say, I would have handled that a different way.
Of course,
But it doesn't make, like, you can't go back in time and change what you did. So there's no sense in beating yourself up for it. So why don't we come up with the reasons, like, why it's good that you yelled at your kids, right? Maybe you prevented them from running in the street and getting killed by a car, right? Maybe you made an impression on them that day. Maybe you taught them that, you can yell and then come back and have a conversation after. So it teaches relationship building, things like that, instead of just always focusing on
the negatives,
the horrible, terrible, negative things that, you do to your kid when you yell at them, because we're all human. So it's going to happen.
Well, how you just put it that way, like, I yelled at my son because it saved him running in front of a car. I never really thought about it myself like that, really, to think of the positives of why I shouted at my son. And if you think about your day-to-day life with your children, most of it is to stop them hurting themselves, or getting in danger, or doing something silly to put them in danger. That's thank you for that, because that's kind of made me think a little bit on the spot, because I think that's a good thing. So where you at? So you extended the course. So obviously now you're a life coach. How's that going? How's the message getting out there to other mums? Are you getting a lot of people saying, we get you, we feel the same and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've done I've done a few webinars. I've sent out materials to people. I have my email list. I do my blog twice a week, and, people are clicking on it. I get responses on Instagram. So people are appreciating the message that I'm putting out there.
Absolutely.
So it is, it feels, I've had people say, thank you for this, and, this is exactly how I feel, and, things like that. And it's just nice to kind of know that you're
helping someone,
validating people. Yeah. Like I had somebody watch my webinar, cause I have it up for free now, but, I had somebody watch my webinar, and they came back and they were like, I just feel so much more peaceful after watching that, because now I know that I don't have to like take all this on myself. I can kind of let some of this guilt go, some of the shame go, right? So she was like, I woke up today and I felt calmer than I have in a long time.
And what you said just nice. A minute ago, rewind a little bit, when you said comparing on social media and stuff like that, I totally understand you, because I've seen parents, I may have done it myself at times, where you see, oh, look, they're doing this with their son, or look, they look so happy, blah, blah, blah. And then you try and force that thing in your environment, and it just right. your kids ain't stupid. They can feel the fake. It feels fake. It doesn't feel real. Right. And that's what I learned. Stop the comparing. Like, totally. I like to take things from people like yourself. I will take something, what you've told me, and introduce it into my mindset and bring it into my house. But there's no point me watching someone on Facebook and comparing it, because it's just going to ruin that relationship a little bit more. And you're going to feel more ashamed and more guilty that you can't do those things 24/7, what Joe Blogs is doing on the internet. So I totally respect that and hear that, because that's why I hate social media. One of the reasons as well, because I love it, like us connecting, but the comparing and then the judgmental kind of side of social media, that's not what I like, but that's another story. So, sorry. So your webinar and everything, and obviously to all the listeners out there, what I'll do at the end of it, I'll put any links that Carrie gets. I'll pull them at the end of this video, and also her page. So if you want to connect with Carrie, you can also. But Carrie, just a quick one. Also, I just wanted to see. I've got a few little notes written down.
Yep.
So we spoke about your balancing of mental health and motherhood.
Yep.
Was that the toughest period of your life, as juggling as a mother, and also the mental health side? Was that the toughest period you've gone through?
I would say the toughest period was after my second daughter was born. Okay. Because she didn't sleep.
Oh, I've got two twins. They're 3. They don't sleep.
She wouldn't. Oh, I mean, well, thank goodness she slept at night, but she didn't sleep during the day, right? Oh. And for a newborn, that's like
weird.
Unheard of, right? Weird. So she would, and it started at like 3 weeks, and she just wouldn't nap, no matter what I did. And so because of that, and because obviously she needs sleep because she's a newborn, she would just scream all day. Like, scream all day. I mean, my nerves were so shot, I couldn't even see straight. I mean, talk about yelling and anxiety. And I mean, I was like out of my mind. And on top of it, like, now I also have a 4-year-old to take care of. And I'm taking care of this one. I'm not getting any sleep. We have stressors, like, my husband had lost his job at that point, so we were living off of unemployment. Like, I mean, there was just so many things happening in that short amount of time. So I would say that that
was the toughest.
Was the worst. I mean, it was so bad. You know, people call and they're like, "Oh, how's it going?" And you usually give the answer, "Oh, you know, it's good, it's tough, but it's okay." I would just be like, "It's terrible, it's awful. I don't think I can do this. I can't do it. I'm gonna jump off a bridge." I was just like completely out of my mind.
Those daytime naps, we need those little naps as a parent as well with them, don't we? That's what I used to look forward to.
Exactly.
That's what I used to look forward to. So, if you don't mind me asking, how was your husband coping in all this? In between of all this, obviously you going through a tough time, having a newborn around. How was your husband coping, seeing you change a little bit, and with obviously you beating yourself up a lot, thinking everything's your fault and stuff? How was he coping?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was struggling too. I mean, by the time our second daughter was born, like I said, he had lost his job. So he was, the company closed down. So we went from him working to zero income in a day. And so obviously that was a stressor. So he was dealing with that piece of it. And that actually happened right before I had her. But, so then once we had her and all the sleeping stuff happened, I mean, he was struggling. He presents it in a different way. He doesn't really get angry. He gets very quiet, and kind of goes inward. Like he did all the dad things. Like, you know, when he came home, I would give him the baby and he would take the baby and he would just sit there and let her scream. But he didn't outwardly get frustrated. But I knew that he was,
yeah.
You know, I'm the one like running around tearing my hair out and yelling, and he's just like sitting there with the baby, like, oh, okay, like he didn't know what to do, you know. So we were both struggling in our own way, but we are pretty good with being a team, and usually, if one of us is down for the count, the other one steps up. When it gets hard is when we're both down.
That's really good to hear.
So I mean, we got through it, and now she sleeps like a rock.
I was just going to come to that.
Now I can't get her out of bed. She's 14. All she wants to do is like lay in bed and be like, I'm so comfortable in my bed. And, you know, she draws a lot, so she's on her iPad in bed.
Maybe you run around screaming at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I'll just run into her room. And how do you like it? Yeah.
I've said that to my kids before. Sometimes, like, I'll get a bit frustrated when my boys don't like put the toilet seat up or down and stuff like that. And I'll go, I'll come to your house. I'm going to leave it all a mess, leave the fridge open, drink all your drinks, leave the wrappers on the floor. I probably won't. I won't do it.
You don't do it, but it's nice to say.
Nice to say, to try and make them think, oh, would he? But no, they know I wouldn't. So obviously you're doing your life coaching now, going well, your webinar and stuff like that. So what's your plans going forward? Obviously sticking with your life coaching. Do you have any other goals or stuff you want to do in this kind of sector?
Yeah. Well, so I want to grow. So right now I'm working on a new program, and I haven't quite figured out how to market it yet, to be quite honest. But I'm kind of calling it a hybrid program, and it's not finished yet. But it's going to be a little bit of one-on-one coaching, but a lot of support in between, because life coaching is like therapy in the sense that, you like meet once a week,
yeah.
Right? And it's on Zoom now, but like you meet once a week. But what happens in the middle of the week when stuff happens, exactly. Right? And so that's what I've been thinking about. Like, what kind of program would I have needed when things were really at their worst, right? So I'm creating a program where people are going to be able to contact me whenever they need to. Not that I would respond to them in the moment. Sometimes I will, but I would give like a 24-hour period. But, through text or a voice message or a video message, and then I will respond back to them in between our sessions, so they have support
to the next session,
not just till the next session, because that's really, because things come in your mind and you're like, you want to talk it out then, and then by the time you get to your person that you're seeing, whether it's therapy or a life coach or whatever, by the time you get there, it's sort of
you
over,
don't want to talk about it.
And you either don't want to talk about it, or you've talked yourself out of talking about it, or it doesn't seem like a big deal anymore, right? But in the moment, it is. And so I want to be able to provide something to people that they can just be like, give me a quick text, or like whatever people are comfortable with. Some people like voice, some people like text, some people like video.
Whatever
I like all three, so it's fine. So so that's what I'm currently building.
No, that's a really good idea. It's similar to what we're doing here is because obviously in between I've been there, counselling, whatever it is, you see them on a Monday and then you don't see them to the week after. So much stuff has happened within that week, and there is no other, well, who do I go to now? I need to speak to them, but you can't get through. You get the receptionist, or they're busy or whatever. So what you're doing is breaking that middle bit where you're dwelling for a whole week to the next meeting, where they can come to you and get advice, get support, whatever. That's a brilliant idea. So really respect that. That's a great idea. So obviously now you and your daughter's much better. Yes.
Yes, much better. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm walking on eggshells with her anymore. But I also respect what she wants, which is something that I didn't do. So, for example, she doesn't really love to be touched. So she's not a hugger, right? But at least for my kids, like, I want to hug my kids. So I would, like, make her hug, like, I'd hug her goodnight. Like, that's what I landed on, is like, I would hug her goodnight. But she would even hate that. Like, it just bothered her. And so I finally gave
and
that
accepted
up,
it.
right? So it doesn't. I'm just like, she just doesn't like it.
I'll get that, because I thought with my daughter, and she's 10, the one who thinks she's 19, is, well, how comes you cringe or get a bit weird when me or mum cuddle you and stuff? And I just accepted it, and it doesn't mean, like, I know people, and I felt it. Does she love me, or have I done something wrong? And of course they love you. It's just kids are different growing up. They just don't want to be touched, or they want to be touched. I've got a daughter who loves cuddles, and she doesn't. So yeah, I'm glad you come around that and accepted that. Again, to all mums out there, it doesn't mean they don't love you. Of course they do. It's just we're all different. I don't like cuddling. Anyone tries to cuddle me, it's like, get away.
Yeah, right.
Get away. But I don't like it.
But we're conditioned to, like, make our kids do stuff like that. Like, think about, like, when you bring them to grandma's house. Oh, give grandma a kiss? I don't want to. Just do it. I don't want to, right? You're like making them do, so, like, their whole life is like, go hug this person, go let that person kiss you, right? And you're like, and it, like, dawned, like, you just do that. And then as I got into this work, I realized, like, why do we do that? It's like, if you think about it, it's creepy. Like, you just go into the normal world. You're like, oh, go hug that person. You're like, I don't want to.
Because
like, but they want to hug you.
Because we're a bit like, it's with kids. It'd be a bit. Oh, you're a bit of a hypocrite, like us as parents, because we're telling them to go and hug X, Y, and Z, and obviously when they grow older, I'll stay away from that person. Don't cuddle them. Don't cuddle. But you. Growing up, you've told me to cuddle everyone, and now you're telling me not to cuddle someone. It's like, make your mind up. Right. So, no, I totally hear that. Let them make their own mind up. Obviously, teach them what the negatives and the positives of what to do and what touching is appropriate and stuff like that. But obviously, let them make their own mind up. And we're glad that did you get around that quite quickly about accepting? No, did that go on for a while?
No, that went on for a while. I mean, because in my mind, I'm like, all I'm doing is hugging her goodnight. Like, what is the big deal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how I kept thinking about it. And when she went to school, I would, like, give her a kiss on the head, and she hated that too. But I was like, what is the big deal? Like, this is in my mind. Like, why is she being so difficult about this? This is stupid. Like, I'm your mother. Just hug me. Like, this is what, you know what I mean? Like, these are all the things going through my head. And then, you know, I mean, quite honestly, it turned into like this big, huge thing. And it ended up in a fight. And I thought about it after, and I was just like, all right, you know what? You don't like this. I'm just not going to do it anymore.
No,
you know, which was really hard for me. And then I went upstairs and cried for an hour because I was like, what, like, how can I be, like, how did I do a good job as a mother if my own kid doesn't want to?
No, I get that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it really, I mean, it really took, it wasn't like I was like, all right, just don't hug me, everything's good. It was really hard. It was like one of the hardest things that I've done.
I bet that was. So now, obviously, your future plan sounds brilliant. And if that ever gets up and running, please let us know or send me the link or whatever. I might pass it on to my missus. No, because I've been listening to you today. I think there's things that, as a father, has clicked into my head and think, that actually makes sense. And I'm hoping that a lot of mums out there can relate. I think they will, because a lot of things you've said, I've spoke to family members, mums and stuff like that before, and it just all sounds. It sounds simple, but your head doesn't work like that. So I totally get where you're coming from. And one thing I would say is, like, I'm glad you realised, no, stop beating myself up, stop being ashamed and stuff like that. And mums out there, you never feel ashamed. You can only do the best that you can. And obviously, if you need anything or any advice, I'll put the link out there again. So, Kerry, just to end on, is there any messages you want to give any mums out there, apart from your story, which has been brilliant and it's inspired me? And also, I just want to say you should be very proud of yourself, how you've come out of that situation, because some people would have just beat themselves up for the rest of their life, and then the relationship with their children would have just got worse and worse and worse and worse, and then eventually some kids might not want to know their parents again. So well done for coming out of that. Is there, any message you want to give any parents or any mothers out there before we end it there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest message that I try to get out there in many different ways is just, no matter how terrible or broken you think things are with your daughter, or even any teen. I mean, I focus on teen daughters, but I mean, this applies to you know, to any kid. You can always change things from wherever you are, right? So no matter how broken you think things are, no matter where you stop and think about it and change your behavior, things will get better. They just will.
Definitely. And the funny thing is, just listening to that now, it's just, we're talking about children and being a mother and with our child. So much of this conversation connects to a lot of different mental health, anxieties, depressions in all aspects of life. And so, if anything, I would take note of what Carrie just said at the end, because a lot of that can help in a lot of different situations as well. But Carrie, it's been a privilege and honour to talk to you. I hope you come back on.
Thank you. I'd love to.
Again, my hosting skills ain't been the greatest. I always beat myself up. I'm learning still. But no, listen, it's been an honour to hear your story, and thank you so much. And everyone, I will post all the links of Kerry out there. So Kerry, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
All that feeling inside, it was killing my health. I'll be telling you lies if I weren't looking for help. Yeah, I chat to a couple guys, they had that feeling as well. This mental health of mine spoken.